Everyone that's listening to this right now, the next time your mind says, oh, you don't have to go to the gym, you could skip it today, give yourself grace. When you go to bed at night, are you going to be proud of yourself? Because no matter what, you're going to go to bed. No matter what. You get that chance one time to change the way that your brain works. You put those deposits into your identity, and sometimes our first thought is a limiting belief, and that's okay. We can't necessarily choose that thought. You're going to think those thoughts, that's fine. I can't choose that one, but I can choose the second one.
Jen,
Hi.
Welcome to the Meat Mafia Podcast.
I'm so excited. This is so fun.
So fun. Serendipitous, right?
For real.
So you're in town for the Forever Strong Summit.
Yeah.
Shout out Dr. Gabrielle for making this connection.
Yes.
We're getting you right before you're heading back to Fort Lauderdale. So
Yeah.
we're just going to rip it and have a great episode. We appreciate you.
I'm so excited. I love where life takes you sometimes. I had
Yes.
no idea I was going to be sitting here in this like really dope like barn situation across
Yeah.
from the gym. Like it couldn't get any better than this.
Totally.
When I came here, Gabrielle said, you got to go. And I'm like, great, I make time.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are. How was the summit for you?
Magic.
Magic.
It was magic. I rarely now get to go to events where I'm just like attending. I was on that podcast panel, which was awesome and perfect and great. But at the actual event, I got to be an attendee. Usually I'm speaking or something, so it's a different experience. And I got to sit in the audience and listen and watch and connect. And we were talking about this before we clapped. But my biggest takeaway from that room was the power of really showing up for people. Because we were saying this about Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and I hope you're listening to this, Gab. She has given so much. I was like, wow, I've never had a friend like Dr. Gabrielle because she gives so much to me, and I just feel so loved. It's almost like so much. I'm like,
Yes.
how can I even receive all of this? And she's such a great friend. But when I went into that room, I was like, oh my God, she does that for everyone in her life. And that room, the energy in that room, all of the phenomenally successful people that don't go to things showed up and they were in that room. That was full because of the amount of service that she's given to people. And it was just such a reminder to me about the power of connection, the power of giving, and what happens when you just selflessly give. That event was magic, and everyone showed up 100%, not for any reason other than, I think, because they loved her.
Yes.
And then the content was great, so we all stuck around.
Definitely.
But we were there for her.
Yes. And you've seen this too, and we've done a couple events in the health space, and it's a long day. There were a lot of amazing speakers, but it's a lot of packed in content. And some of the events, you can tell that people are getting restless, but there were so many. It seemed like everyone that was there was just locked in on the content because, number one, they love Gabrielle. Number two, like the speakers that she curated, the content that they're talking about, it was so good. It was like a masterclass event. And then even with this podcast connection, it's like 6 o'clock on Sunday. She's been on her feet for probably like 72 hours, all the planning that goes into this. And she's still like, hey, you guys should definitely get Jen on the podcast, and makes the connection happen. So that's like a testament to the person that she is. Because I feel like a lot of us in present society, you're not used to meeting someone that's so giving. So I think when you meet someone like her, your initial reaction is like, is there like an expectation on the other end of it? And she's just like one of a kind, where she just wants to help people succeed.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like going to those types of events, they always end up like planting seeds for like future ideas, just things that like I want to do. Like I know after that event, I was like, I want to do an event again. Like it's like, it inspired me to want to do more. And I was curious, is there any seeds that were planted for you, Jen, that, maybe you were inspired to do something after that?
Yes. Well, events changed my life. My whole life changed when I went to my very first event all by myself. It was years ago, but I heard a podcast, and the person I won't say who it was, but it was like, we're doing this event, and if you want to find like-minded people to connect with, you should come. And at that time, I was just starting my journey into personal development. And when you start to just shift your mindset a little bit, like entrepreneurship, personal growth, if you don't have friends and community that are into that, it gets really lonely really quickly. And I found myself feeling like, oh my God, nobody gets it. And it was hard for me to really grow in that direction with the people that I was surrounding myself with, because they were not on board. And so I had to kind of keep it secret to myself. So my friends would all like be going to the clubs and drinking and stuff. And I'd be like, okay, bye, I'm going to go to Barnes & Noble. And I would just like walk the streets of New York with my AirPods in and listen to podcasts and like read books. And I heard of this event. I was like, I got to go. I got to be around people because I have to meet people. That was the initial thought process. And so I'm actually quite introverted, and you might not think that from meeting me 2 days ago on the stage, but going to an event by myself is actually like really scary. But I was like, no, you need to do uncomfortable shit. You need to push yourself, go. And I went by myself, and it changed my life completely. I met people there. I got ideas there. It kickstarted the momentum that actually pushed me along on my entrepreneurial journey. And I would say that that was the kickstart to get me to where I am today, which is why we host events now. That's like my part of my business.
Yes.
And I speak all over the world. But you asked me what my biggest takeaway was from this event. And I always now go into events with one goal. My goal is always, I want to at least meet one person that's going to be oh, this is why I went, or get one aha takeaway. Oh, this is why I went when I leave an event. I don't try to do all the things, because I find that if I go in with like, oh, I want to do all the things, then I get overwhelmed and it's too much and I'm not as intentional. So, and I found by going to so many of these events that usually there is just, oh, that event was for that person. That event was because I was supposed to learn that thing. And so there was, from this event, I remember having the conversation, and I'll tell you exactly who it was, and I hope he listens to this, and maybe I'll send it to him afterwards. But Gabrielle's very smart, and she intentionally creates connection and kind of sneaks it in with people that she thinks you need to know. And Ben Newman, who was on the panel with me, I had never known before. I didn't know Ben. And one of my goals is to be like the top female speaker in the world. That's one of my goals. I'm open about it. It's very nervous for me to say that. I don't like saying that, but it's my goal, so I'm going to keep saying it out loud, because you never know who's listening.
I love it.
And so she's like, Jen, you need to know Ben Newman. So she put me next to him on the bus. She put me on that panel with him. She strategically introduced me to him. And we had this wonderful, amazing conversation. And I was like, oh my God, there's going to be so much that we can do together. And we just had like this wonderful moment. And I was like, wow, that was, that was a really great, incredible connection and conversation to have. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, I did not know this was going to happen. And this was another reason I think that I came here.
100%. So 2 great nuggets from the weekend.
Incredible. And then, of course, I learned a bunch of stuff. But I'm always going to events looking for people, because I find that opportunities come from people. Experiences, you don't have them unless they're with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ideas come from people. All the growth in my life, when I connect the dots looking backwards, it always stemmed from a human. My company's called Super Connector Media, and it's because we fully believe in the power of connection. So I will always go out of my way to come do something like this, to connect with new people, especially people that someone like my good friends like Gabrielle says you need to meet. Like, you need to meet someone, done, I'm there.
Definitely. No, we love that. That's so good. And I love that you proudly state that goal, that you want to be the number one female speaker in the world, because something Harry and I talk a lot about is just, I think something we've learned from this show is the ability to be a great public speaker and communicate effectively, to sell, whatever it is. It really is like a superpower in modern society. And I would love to just learn a little bit more about the story around your first speaking engagement. What did you learn from that? And maybe just like some practical things that you really worked on over the years to become such a prolific speaker as you are now. I think that would be really cool.
Well, thank you for saying that. And we need to back up a little bit before that so people can get context, because I used to be an actress. Since I was a kid. Like, I was an actor since I could speak words. I was in like children's theater and commercials, and I was a performer. If you came over to my house when I was 5, there was a probably 100% chance that I was bringing you into my living room and putting on a show for you. I was just a born performer, and that's all I ever wanted to do with my life. And my dream was to become an actress. I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to be on TV. And that's what I went to school for. That's like what I did with my life. And out of college, or I dropped out of college, and I went to a musical theater conservatory program on the Upper West Side of Manhattan called the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. And during that time, I got my dream role in a show called The Wedding Singer. You know, the Adam Sandler movie, The Wedding Singer? Okay, my dream role was to be Linda, the bitch. In that, you remember the movie?
Oh yeah.
Linda, you a
Yes.
bitch? Okay, so in the show, she's like this hilarious, like Pat Benatar wannabe, like ditzy New Jersey girl. And I saw the show and I was like, I need to play this part. I don't know why. I'm not like really attracted to playing the role of like the princess or the good girl or the soprano or Drew Barrymore's role. I was like, I want to be the bad girl. And I ended up getting that role, and the story of getting that role is actually one of my keynote speeches now, because it was crazy. I didn't get it right off the bat. Like, it was probably my biggest lesson in entrepreneurship came from trying to get that part and getting rejected a zillion times, and then being the understudy, and like all the things that happened on the road to getting it. But I ended up playing that part across the country, touring for a year. And then when I got back from that, I was on a TV show on VH1 about heavy metal music for 5 years.
Which you knew nothing about.
Nothing.
Right? Yeah.
No. But to get back to your question, I was an actress. So I was really, really used to memorizing lines and performing on stage. Comfortable with that, like really good at that. Like that was my jam. However, being a speaker is a much, much, much different experience than playing a part and playing a role. Yes, you bring a lot of the skill sets, like knowing stage presence and how to project and how to stand on stage and being just comfortable on a stage. 100% I learned that when I was an actor. But when I first got that very first speaking engagement, which was in front of 12 people or 14 people sitting on the floor in a fitness studio. At the time, I was a personal trainer, and I had built a very successful personal training company. And so this company brought me in, and they were like, "We want you to teach our other trainers how to do what you did and just tell your story and give a keynote speech." I'm like, "Oh my God, what? Like, talk about me? Like, get up there and tell my story?" I don't know why, but I've performed in front of thousands of people. I was so, you guys, like, your pants nervous. I had never been that nervous. And it was 12 people sitting on the floor and I had no shoes on and like no microphone or anything. I'm like standing there like telling them my story. And I had practiced for weeks and weeks. And I thought as an actor, I was supposed to memorize my lines. You know, like I was memorizing this whole thing. And I got up there in front of them and I was like, I cannot say memorized words right now. That will just not, that just didn't feel right. So I just threw it all out the window and I started talking. I shared my story. And like 15 minutes in, I see one of the girls on the floor like start to cry.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was like, whoa, this might be it. Because I had stopped acting to become an entrepreneur because the whole lifestyle of being an actress, I was like, there's something that just does not fit here for me. Like, I want to be able to write my own story. I want to be able to choose myself. I want to be able to make sure that I'll be okay and not wait for the next role all the time and waiting for someone else to pick me. And I was like, this is a thing. I can speak, I can teach, I can tell my story, I can be me. And I can help people while doing it. And that was the moment where I was like, whoa, maybe this is how the dots are going to connect. And so I invite people all the time to really think about moments like that because they're sneaky moments. I had no idea that I was going to love that. If you were to tell me 15 years ago, hey, you're going to be a keynote speaker, an inspirational, motivational speaker, you're going to teach people from stage. I'm like, what? You're crazy. Like, you're absolutely crazy. That's not what I'm going to do. But when you're put in those moments and you can really listen in and you can really feel, I like to call it being in the pocket. Like, what does it feel? Do you feel in the pocket when you're doing that? Holy crap, maybe you should lean into that a little bit more. And I have one other story that really connects the dots that I want to share with you guys that's absolutely crazy that I didn't get to share on that panel, which is really cool. So I have a really great relationship with my dad. And when I was a little girl, when I was acting and performing, he was my #1 fan. Like, every show in school, when I was a kid, like sitting there with like roses in the front row, like I just see that image all the time. And he would always say to me when I was doing shows in high school, we had to do we didn't have a theater in our high school. We had like a hallway and we would perform all of our performances in this hallway. So he would always say like, Jenny, you're going from hallway to Broadway. I just know it. Like, it's happening. And he watched the journey and he was there the whole time. And then when I hit my rock bottom moment and when the show got canceled and I was with this guy that broke up with me and I lost everything, and that's when I built my personal training company from scratch. When that all happened, he would always ask me like, are you sure you want to quit acting? Like, you love it so much, like it's your dream. And I was like, yeah, I just can't do that right now, Dad. And he still was so supportive. So skip to maybe a year ago. So now I'm speaking all over the world. Everywhere. And my dad has MS now, multiple sclerosis. So my dad hasn't been able to travel at all to come see my performances now. These are, the way that I perform. He watches on Instagram, but it's not the same. And I got invited to speak in South Florida where he lives, and he could finally come. So my dad was like, oh my God, he was so excited. And it was at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, which is a very big building. And my dad walks with a cane. He's like, I don't care how far I have to walk with my cane in that casino. I'm coming to see you speak no matter what. So my dad comes and he's sitting in the front row, and I was speaking to all these real estate investors. I'm often the only woman speaking to a bunch of dudes, and I love it. I think it's great. I think it's my unfair advantage that I get to go and be the only woman in the room and bring it. And So my dad's sitting there, I'm looking at him, and I have all these big bro-y real estate investors visualizing and meditating, and like some of them crying, and like we're doing like this really cool moment that we do together in the beginning of my talk. And my dad's looking at me and looking at everything that's going on, and we're just having this moment. And we get in the car after, and he starts crying, and he's like, Jenny, this is what it was all for. All of those years of you rehearsing and practicing and me taking you to the auditions and you not getting the part and getting the part and like all the performing and all of it, like it wasn't for that. We thought it was for that, but it was really for this. And that always reminds me, like, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards.
100%.
Totally.
And to have that moment with my dad where he was like, holy crap.
He saw it.
We didn't
Like,
know.
yeah.
We thought it was for one thing, but it was really for the other. So what is it in the person that's listening to this? What is the thing that maybe you're doing right now that doesn't feel completely connected? Keep doing that thing, because maybe it's that thing that's actually secretly leading you to the real thing.
Yes.
It's the stepping stone. Keep going.
It's amazing how life works in that way, where some of our biggest losses, or I think most people's biggest losses, ultimately end up turning into their biggest successes in those moments that are magical. Like the fact that your dad was there to see you transform into this new person, new career, and it being like the exact harmony in the life that your dad was hoping, maybe hoping the acting career was going to be, just because you loved it so much. And now it's really something different, but it takes a lot of those same skill sets.
Exactly.
Just so cool how life kind of just can do that for people.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's such a good reminder. And I always try to continue to remind myself of that when I'm unclear in my next step and everything, right? Because I'm not where I want to be yet. I don't think any of us are. I think that's the beauty of life.
Yeah, I know Matthew McConaughey talked about that in his book, Green Lights, where it's like you have these red light moments. She's like, oh, my boyfriend broke up with me. My dream job is getting canceled off Broadway. But that was really like probably wasn't the best relationship for you to be in. Ultimately, that wasn't the right profession that you were supposed to be in. And it pushed you to do what you're doing now. And it seems like you absolutely love it. You're so engaged with everything that you're doing. And then with your dad, I don't think there's a cooler feeling than like really making a parent proud of you. And I'm sure it was one thing for him to like see you on social media and he saw how many followers you had and how good of a speaker you are. But it's another thing to actually be in the room and see all these people that are there just for his daughter who's absolutely crushing it. Like, I'd have to think that's one of the most special moments of your career, if not the most special moment.
It was awesome. It was really, 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 really special.
Yeah.
What tips or what things, moments do you look back on that helped you kind of get from actress to speaker on stage? Because that journey takes a lot of faith, like really changing things up and trying to reorient yourself in a new career. You really have to be confident and find a way to make things work. So I'm curious, are there things that you think about, tips that you use, or like look back on now and be like, that's kind of what got me through that time. Like this little thing that I did helped me get through this.
Well, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. So even after that like 14-person keynote speech that I did, I didn't know I was going to be a speaker. I went back to my personal training gig. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go be a speaker now. I was just like, this is cool. I like this. I don't know how to do this or how to get opportunities to do this, but I like this. So everybody knows the backstory, and then I'll go back and I'll tell you the things that actually move the needle for me. But really soon after that moment of starting to speak in front of different fitness professionals and building my fitness company, I met my now husband, Chris. And he was an entrepreneur as well. And he had this company that hosted events that connected entrepreneurs to the media. So he was hosting these events and would bring a bunch of business owners in and also media professionals like producers and writers into an event for 3 days, and so that they can connect and make relationships. And he would teach the entrepreneurs how to pitch themselves and put themselves out there. So I started going to these events that Chris was throwing and seeing Chris on stage speaking. And I was like, wait a second, I could do this. This is what I wanted to do. And so we started just going to events together now. Now these, like the event that we were just all at, very similar entrepreneurial events where a lot of the times Chris was speaking or teaching and I was just getting more involved in this space. And there was this one day where Chris and I were at one of these events and I was helping him a lot, and I just was leaning into his business a lot more than mine. I was like, I like this so much more. And again, it's like really, I got that taste when I did it for the first time in front of those 14 or 12 people. And I kept tasting it again a little bit and a little bit every time I went to an event with Chris, and I saw more speakers on stages, and I was like, oh, this is what it is that I want to do. And so Chris and I were on this walk, and he was like, what would it take for you to just drop your business and for us to become partners and build this into something completely different and new and bigger. Because he saw something in me, I guess, that I didn't really see in myself. And I'm a fast, quick start action taker. And so I said, okay. And I had a very successful business and I sunsetted it. And Chris and I came together and we built Super Connector Media, which created a lot of opportunities for me to do events with him and start speaking on stages more and start building education. And it was really a great partnership because I knew how to get in the media. I knew how to teach people how to be seen because I was an actress for so long. And so it was like all the skill sets, everything was connecting and coming into, okay, being an entrepreneur as well. So it was everything combining. Now, when I look back at what was really moving the needle when it came to me breaking out and speaking more on other people's stages and like building a bigger brand, like what you asked, a couple of things come to mind. And the first thing is what we were talking about earlier, and that is opportunities come from people, relationships, connections. If I look back at any opportunity I've ever gotten to speak on anybody's stage, especially the first ones that really moved the needle for me. So the first few stages were the ones that were like, oh, people saw me. And then other people were like, oh, I saw her on that stage. I should invite her to be on my stage. It's a snowball effect. They came from relationships. And those relationships came from me getting in rooms and being scared and being uncomfortable and feeling like I was the poorest, dumbest person in the room a lot of the time. And just being like, hey, I'm going to raise my hand and ask a stupid question even though I feel dumb. Or like, I'm going to go up to that person and introduce myself. Or I'm going to go sit at this table of people that I don't know and just talking to people and saying, I want to speak. This is what I do. And the more people that I met and the more I just figured out how to provide value to people instead of figuring out what I could get from people, just like what Dr. Gabrielle teaches us so beautifully, the more opportunities came my way. And then the second thing that I would say to you is when you do get invited to do the thing that you want to do, it's going the extra mile because the extra mile is never crowded. And I knew, I was like, I'm going to be the best speaker they've ever had. And being the best speaker they've ever had at an event is not just crushing it on stage. Yes, you need to crush it on stage. But more importantly, think about what really provides value to somebody that's hosting an event. They want butts and seats. They want their attendees to have an amazing experience. They want to sell tickets. And they want to sell a lot of whatever they're selling at their event. So I was like, I know that. So I'm going to help them promote it. I'm going to get butts and seats. I'm going to go early. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to do whatever I can to pitch their product during my keynote and help them sell. I'm going to be so good they can't ignore me. Like the greatest possible person they could ever have at their event. I'm going to do, if they want me to do Q&A, if they want me to do pictures, if they want me to do meet and greet. And I just focused on every time I went to speak, I squeezed every single drop of juice out of the lemon when it came to providing value for the people that were inviting me. So I was often invited back. I was often referred to other stages because those people were like, oh, she's not just a great speaker. She's just an awesome person. Because I was so focused on making it an amazing experience for them and their attendees. And those are the two things, like build relationships and then show up for those relationships in a really big way. And then wait, one more. I have to give you one more. The third is, and this goes back to a lot of the stuff that I've talked about on social recently, is amplifying the crap out of the thing that you want to do. And if you go to my social now, like I want to speak, so most of the videos that you will see are of me speaking.
Yes.
Right?
Instagram lives, right? Yeah.
Every day. Every day. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the importance of being seen. So whatever it is you want to do, if nobody knows you want to do it and nobody sees you doing it, then how are you going to get those opportunities? So we have this amazing, beautiful platform that's completely free. Social media, all the different platforms that we have. Doesn't cost any money. You can create content online and you can start being seen doing what you're doing, and you never know what kind of opportunities will come from that. So if you get an opportunity to speak or you get an opportunity to do the thing that you really want to do, document it.
Yes.
Like what you guys are doing right now. Showcase it to the world.
Build in public.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love what you said too about going the extra mile, because it's something, it's a term that people have heard, but I don't think they actually contextualize what that means. So from your perspective, because we've seen a bunch of these conferences, it's like the day after the conference ends, a lot of times they're like already planning for the next year. So they're kind of going through the Rolodex of speakers of like, who is good, who's not good, who should I invite back? And then for someone like you, where not only are you speaking, you're selling tickets, you're driving people to go there, you're talking one-on-one with a bunch of the attendees. It's like, well, of course we're going to have Jen back on, because she's doing not just speaking, she's doing everything for us, so outside of the scope of what we paid her to do. And it even reminded me of like the other day, I was trying to get a big podcast guest on the show, and I know the guy's super busy, and I was about to just fire off that email And I'm like, I could fire off the email and not give him any times, or I could just do like the extra 1% thing and give him like 5 different slots that I know that would work from his schedule. And then like immediately, like 20 minutes later, he just like picked one of the days, and like we're gonna book him on the show. So it's kind of like thank you. It's kind of like a minor example, but like I just keep reminding myself throughout the day. It's like, do you want to just leave it here, or do you want to go the extra mile and do like 1% more, because that's where all the gold is.
It's always in the 1% more,
Yes.
because most people aren't willing to do the 1% more. And I love what you did there, because, and this is just a tip in life, the easier you can make something for somebody to say yes, like the more likely they're going to say yes.
Yes.
So for podcasts specifically, how easy can you make it for your guest?
Yes.
For them to say yes?
Just like, pull all the friction out.
Yes, with sales, with everything. Mm-hmm. The easier it is for someone to buy, the more likely they are to buy. And
Definitely.
when I say buy, it means whatever it is you're selling for them to come be a guest on your show.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's also easy to go the extra mile when you, Jen, so like amazingly just like put your goal out there. I think it like really helps. It helps you just like identify like, hey, I'm here. I am going to meet a bunch of people. I want to be the best speaker in the world. So I want like my message to get out there. I want to meet other cool people who are doing other cool things, who can be a part of this mission that I have for myself. I can help them out. Like there's something about really clearly identifying where you're trying to go that makes it easier to be the person who's going above and beyond.
Yeah, totally. And for the person that doesn't have clarity, though, I think we should talk to that person, because I talk to a lot. Like I do Instagram lives every day. I don't know if you guys know that. I put my makeup on live. You can join me tomorrow every day. We can talk about that later and the reasons why I do that. But one of the most popular questions that I get is like, how do I gain clarity on what it is that I want? Because it's great that I know what I want now, but I didn't know what I wanted for a really long time. And there's probably lots of things that I still will learn to know that I want. Like I don't have complete clarity over what the vision is for me yet, and maybe it'll change and maybe it'll evolve, and that's the beauty of life. But you can still go into rooms and create magic and opportunities without having utter and complete clarity. My husband taught me this concept of 51%. It's my favorite concept in the entire world. And a lot of people on the internet will tell you that you need to like believe 100%. You need to be 100% clear on what you want. You need to be 100% motivated in order to take action. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm never at 100%. Ever. And if I waited to take action or go to an event or do something until I was 100%, I wouldn't do anything. Because I always have a little bit of fear or doubt or unclarity or uncertainty, because that's the human experience. That's the beauty of it. If we knew everything all the time and we were always confident, then everything would be just the same. And that contrast is important. So what my husband, Chris, taught me is just 51%. You just need to believe a little bit more than you don't. You need to be a little bit clearer than you're not. You need to just want it a little bit more than you don't. And if you can get to 51% and get yourself in the room, that action step itself will open up clarity that maybe gets you to 53%,
yes,
maybe 60, then sometimes 70. And then maybe you're floating up at 75%, 80%, and then maybe you take action at 80%, and that gives you a win, that gives you an idea. Holy shit, that's what I want. But the only way to get clear is to take action. So sometimes I'll go, or even when I first started out, I was going into rooms not knowing what the hell I wanted. And I was just taking scary action steps, just doing things, and then whoa, I liked that. Okay, I'm going to go more in that direction. And clarity always follows action. But a lot of people think that they need to have the perfect plan in place and the perfect clarity and the 100% and all the things before they go. And then it's like 20 years later and they're like, I just never did anything because I was waiting for the perfect plan, and that never comes.
Yes.
Totally.
It's such a good point. And I think, too, you reminded me of this when you were speaking on Saturday. I think when you do things every day that make you proud, it builds that clarity over time. So you're like, look, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to start waking up at 5. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to pay money to go to this event and have great energy and just try and network with new people and make an impression. And then over time, you're like, oh, wow, I'm actually in this situation that I love. And that was why on Saturday you were talking about this awesome practice that you have that I've been doing since Saturday, where
you have?
Actually, I don't want to steal your I've been doing it every day, even with that email. I swear to God, with that, I sent the email yesterday that I was talking about a few minutes earlier, and I'm like, do you want to go to bed and say that you didn't do the 1% thing, or do you want to like book this guest, do the additional harder thing, and then be proud of yourself at the end of the day? But I don't want to steal your thunder, so why don't you tell the listeners what that practice is? Because it's been amazing since I've started doing it. So
First of all, you can have my thunder any day. I'm so proud of you that you
Thank
did
you.
that.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
it's life-changing. Seriously, it's life-changing.
You know, there's one person that listens to you say something and like hears it and like, oh, that's cool. And then there's another person that implements. And I think that just made me so happy.
They always, because it's so simple, but it goes such a long way. Like even when you're, I was even thinking about like, oh, do I want to eat this thing or eat that thing yesterday? And I'm like, no, do you want to be able to like write in your journal that you stayed on track with your diet? It's like, it just kind of sits in the back of your mind as you go throughout your day. But yeah, why don't you tell the listener what
I'm
it
gonna
is?
share. I'm
Yeah.
gonna share what it is. I think we just led up to a really great. We really teased them.
Yeah, we
They
did.
listened for a little bit longer than maybe
Exactly.
if they were gonna shut it off. They didn't because they want to hear this. So I hope it's good enough for you guys. So what I started to do was I don't really have time for a perfect morning routine anymore. There was a time in my life when I was great with my morning routine, when my life was exactly the same every day. When I was a personal trainer and I got up at the same time and I went to my first client at the same time, I did the same morning routine every day. Worked great for me. Now I can't do the same morning routine every day because I'm an entrepreneur and every day is different. And so I'm like, screw it. I don't have a morning routine anymore. Fuck the morning routine. But I needed to have something that was repetitive, that was a commitment that I could stick with myself every single day to just have that moment of intentionality with myself. So I decided, well, I don't have time in the morning and my mornings are always different, but I always have 3 minutes before I go to bed. Like always. No matter what. When I get in my bed, I got a few minutes to do something.
Definitely.
And I find that I have the word time tattooed on my wrist. And I tattooed this on my wrist because the thing that gets me through all of the most uncomfortable moments in my life is always this concept that no matter what, discomfort is temporary, and no matter what, you're going to end up in your bed tonight. No matter what. No matter how this podcast goes, if it's amazing or if it's awkward or, so far it's amazing. But no matter what, I promise you guys are going to be thinking about me in your bed tonight.
Yes.
We're going to get in our bed tonight and it's going to be done.
Yep.
Totally.
And tomorrow's going to come. So, and that goes for my workouts. My workout's so hard. It hurts so bad. I don't want to do that last rep or that last step. No matter what, if I do it or if I don't, I'm still going to end up in my bed tonight. How do I want to feel when I get in my bed tonight? Because my overall feelings about myself, my overall, I guess my success is really directly related to the confidence that I have within myself in order to stick with the commitments that I make, no matter how hard they are. So every time I get in my bed at night and I can say, Jenny, you did it, that's another coin in the confidence bank.
Definitely.
So what I started to do at night when I would be like, I got my 3 minutes, what am I going to do? I just started writing down my wins. The wins for the day, anything that I did that made me proud. So I could take a moment and celebrate it because that's important when building confidence, to make sure that you get that little dopamine hit from the good thing that you did that was hard. But what ended up happening as a result was not what I thought. I initially thought, I was like, I'm just going to celebrate myself every night. That's great. Here's what happened, though. I started going through my day, pushing myself a little bit harder because I subconsciously wanted to write it down every night. I liked it. I liked writing it down. I did that thing. I didn't want to get to the end of my day and write down, oh, shit, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I wanted to get to the end of the day and write down, I did it. I checked it. I did it. I did the hard thing. It was hard, but I moved through it and I did it. And I believe that success is not built by one moment. Success is built every single day, little by little, that progression every day. And so if you can have that little moment within yourself where you're like, I did it today.
Yeah.
You want it again the next day.
Yes.
Totally.
You want it, you crave it, and you did.
I did. And one of the things you also said too on Saturday was that not only are you writing it down and ending it on a high, you're then sleeping and then it's baking into your subconscious mind. So probably when you're waking up, you feel awesome about those things. And that builds your identity of like, I'm just someone that does hard shit every single day.
That's right. That's 100% right.
Yeah.
I love that you use baking. I use that too.
Yeah. Just
I'm always
marinating,
baking on
That was a
things.
great
Yeah.
visualization.
Things are always baking. Like,
Always.
what are the ingredients that you're putting into your oven that you're baking?
Definitely.
You know, like, are the ingredients I'm winning, I do hard things, or the ingredients like, man, I didn't do it again. Like, I can't do that because of, or a victim mindset, like, oh, poor me, I couldn't do it because this happened and this happened. No, what if you wrote down, you know what, this happened and this happened, but I did it anyway.
Definitely.
I love that. I can't wait to send this to my mom and sister and brothers because I feel like that the idea of a to-do list everyone's familiar with, and it almost brings like a little bit of like dread to people. Like they're like, oh man, like I have this massive to-do list. I have to get through all these tasks. But the idea of like actually having a scoreboard that you can go back to and be like, I did these things. I was the person who went and did, all the things I set out to do today. I held myself accountable. Like that is the best way to go to bed and also the best way to wake up, because you're just like excited and inspired to go do more of what you already did yesterday. So like I love that reframe. And I think about for myself too, like the time period in my life where my self-esteem moved the most quickly in the positive direction was when I was writing stuff down at night that I was doing that I did that day. It was like kind of patting myself on the back a little bit, but I think it's a really empowering thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's worked for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you done that for?
This was a newer habit. I would say for the past like maybe 2 years.
So it's still a pretty decent chunk of time.
Yeah. And I would say that the growth that I've had, I don't know if this is as a result of that. I think it's a combination of things, but I chucked the morning routine and I started just doing this.
Yeah.
And the growth that I've had over the last 2 years have been the most I've ever had in my life. So, I mean, guys, everyone that's listening, take it or leave it, try it out. I don't know if it was the thing, but it was one of the tools.
Yeah. And what a better feeling, way better feeling than like everyone knows the feeling of scrolling mindlessly on your phone before bed. And I feel like for me, I beat myself up over it because I'm like, I know I'm mindlessly scrolling. I'm not creating. I'm not doing anything valuable. But I forget if it was Ed Milet's podcast or Dr. Gabrielle's podcast. You were really talking about using social media as this amazing tool, which is what it should be. So like every time before you check your phone, you're asking yourself, am I engaging with someone that I love and care about? Am I creating a piece of content? Am I doing this in a very mindful way versus just like aimlessly scrolling where next thing you know, you've been on your phone for 35 minutes and you've done nothing. And I thought that was a super powerful concept too.
Yeah. And I've kicked my scrolling habit completely.
Really?
I'm very proud to tell you this because I've been working on it for a while and I found a tool that works. And the only reason I can talk about it is because I know that it works. And I'm only going to talk about things that I've actually done that have worked. I used to be that person that even, this was recently, like this last year in 2023, yes, I was always going on to social media like, okay, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to create a piece of content. I'm going to go like chat with a friend. I'm going to go see what they're up to. I'm going to comment on their post. I do that, yes. But I was still, my thumb on its own, by itself, without me telling it, will go to Instagram and just start going like this or going like this. And I don't even realize I'm doing it. And then it's like 15 minutes later, I feel like shit about myself.
Yes.
Because I was just comparing myself to a zillion people's highlight reels subconsciously. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then I'm like, whoa, 15 minutes, I could have been doing something that I feel bad about myself. And it's a whole spiral. So when I was thinking about a few months ago, like how I could move into 2024 being better and what I needed to let go of, I was like, the one thing I have to let go of is the mindless scroll. It is taking so much of my time. It's making me feel bad about myself. It's like taking my blinders that I have on usually like at the beginning of the day and just taking them off and I'm looking at everybody else instead of myself. And I mean, I'm just owning up to this because I have a feeling that if I was experiencing this, many other people were too or are. So what I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I was playing a game. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Every time I catch myself scrolling, I'm just going to say, I don't scroll and put the phone down. That's the trigger. So when I first started doing this, I was into 10 minutes before I realized I was doing it. And then like, oh, I don't scroll. And I'd put it down. That's the rule. And so the win at the end of the day would be like, oh, I said I don't scroll and I actually put it down. Even if it was 10 minutes in. As I started doing this more, it started to be 2 minutes in. Put it down. I don't scroll. It's changing the narrative. It's changing the belief. It's changing your identity. I don't scroll. Not, I'm going to stop. Oh my God, I did it again. I suck. I don't. Put it down. Now, I pick up my phone and I don't even want to have to say it. I'm like, I just got to go post. I'm going to go talk to this person. I don't scroll. And I put it right down. I have not scrolled social media for sure since the new year has began. And it's actually overcorrected itself now because I don't know what the hell's going on, which is kind of a problem. So I have to figure out how to find balance here. But I wanted to share that because it has been working and it's taken my power back. It's taken my time back. And I love social media. I think it's phenomenal. I use it to build my audience. I use it to communicate. I use it to market myself. I use it to help people. I use it for so many things, but I do not want it to use me. I do not want it to use me, and it was. So I stopped.
So powerful. It reminds me of, I know Kobe Bryant would say that he was really adamant about going to the gym at 4 a.m. every single day. And I think when he was younger, he did these calculations where he was like, if I train from 4 to 7, I've added 3 additional hours of training. So if I extrapolate this over the course of like 10 to 15 years, this gives me like a few extra years of experience compared to like my competitors. So there's like the concept of adding time And then there's also this concept of like taking away like the negative time sucks that are detracting from who you want to be. So I even look at like my own phone time. Sometimes it's like 3 hours a day, and I know that's mostly scrolling. What could I do with an additional 3 hours a day? It's like I could probably launch a whole new business with 3 hours a day, honestly. So like how empowering is that for people of like pulling those negative habits out and then replacing it with something that's really good?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of scary for some people, though. They're like, what would I do with 3 hours a day?
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Because that makes
Yes.
you have to face what you're not facing, maybe goals that you have that you're subconsciously maybe doing things like scrolling so that you don't have to really face those or do those hard, scary things.
Yes.
So that's a whole nother topic of conversation. The only reason I can say that is because I personally know. I'm like, oh shit, I have all this time now. Now I really got to go for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
And that's scary.
Also, I really like the positive reframer on social media. We talk about it a lot as we've started to become creators and people who are putting things out there on the internet. Like, I know beforehand I was super anti social media in terms of like not putting anything out there, not sharing any ideas, and it's actually this massive tool and there's a massive amount of leverage out there in terms of being able to connect with people and grow an audience, share ideas. Like there's so much value that can be created, but it's all about how you use it. So I think that's a powerful way that you reframed it, which was just like, this is a great tool, but you know, it can also dominate your time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What advice do you have for these new content creators? Because we have a lot of people that listen to the show that want to get in the game. They're working a corporate job. They know social media is probably that tool to get themselves there. But there's just that imposter syndrome that comes when you've never really put yourself out there. I would just be curious, like what's worked with you, what's worked with clients or people that you know, just to kind of get in the game, build that positive momentum, put some content out there and get all this incredible serendipity that comes from creating a great brand on social media.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to this. This is what I talk about on stage, and there's so many different things that I can give you. The first thing that I would say is we need to stop comparing our chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20.
Yes.
And I think it's really, really important for somebody that's just starting out to understand that if you're going to go and start creating content for the very first time, you need to remember that all the people that you follow that have inspired you maybe to do this, they've been doing it for a long time. And the first post that they did probably didn't get very many likes. And the first 50 posts they did probably didn't get very many likes. And they definitely started from 0 followers. Everybody did. Everybody did. But nowadays we look at these, people maybe that have built a huge podcast with. I've had someone said this to me the other day. They're like, I'm launching my podcast this month. I'm gonna get to 1 million downloads in 3 months. I'm like, do you know that the majority of people that have 1 million downloads have been doing their podcast for like 7 years?
Yes.
And they've had to be consistent. You guys told me that was the most important thing. Like you're consistent no matter what. Most people, if they don't see the success that they're seeing other people that did in like 10 years, 7 years, 5 years, if they don't see it right away, they quit. And they're not consistent. And so they don't even get there because they want that immediate gratification. So the first thing that I would say is it takes consistency and it takes patience. And you need to go into it with that intentionality. It's really, really important. Yes, you can go viral overnight, but that actually I wouldn't wish for that. Because then you didn't learn everything that you needed to learn in order to keep up with that.
Definitely.
I found that my process of growing my social media and learning how to create content and it not working a lot and having to go live every day with 5 people on it taught me a lot of things that I needed to learn in order to get to where I am so that I can now thrive in this position that I'm in. If it happened overnight, then I'd be like, whoa, I got to back up a little bit because now I don't even really know what I'm doing still. So that process of growing it is the best part. Embrace being a beginner. My therapist always asks me all the time. She reminds me of this. When I was launching my book, she reminded me of this every day. I felt like I wasn't doing therapy every day, but I could text her. She's amazing. And she would always ask me, what's your relationship with being a beginner? What is your relationship with being a beginner? Because no one wants to be a beginner anymore.
No.
They want to skip the being a beginner. But here's the thing. All the gifts come from the beginning.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them. The learning, the growth, the progression. I always say, like, bliss comes from progression. If you get to where you want to be immediately, where's all the blissful progression, the wins you get to write down every night? Oh, I got 5 more followers today. You know what I mean? The growth, the learning comes from there. So if you're starting off, embrace that beginning process. Remember, it's not always going to be there. No matter what, time's not going to stop. You are going to grow if you're consistent. The only way that you're not going to grow is if you stop being consistent and you let your impatience get to you and you completely give up. It's going to be a hard, long run, probably, but that's the beauty of it. And then imposter syndrome. So this is a hot topic, hot word that people like to say. But for me, imposter syndrome is just simply a symptom of fear. And I write about the symptoms of fear in my book, and imposter syndrome is one of them. And because as long as we feel like an imposter or like we're not good enough, we're not going to take action. Fear's entire job is to keep us from doing the things that will move us forward. And so feeling not good enough, like maybe everyone's going to figure out that you don't really know what you're talking about. It's a totally common fear that many of us have. I get it regularly, and every time I reach to a new level, I get it again. And I do have a tool that I use that's a little similar to writing down your wins. That's really great for imposter syndrome. And I use it on the regular.
Do you? Yeah.
All the time. So I think you're going to like this one. And it actually kind of goes along with writing down your wins because you can add your wins to this. So this I started doing ages ago. I would say ages ago, meaning like maybe like 7 years ago, this was born. And this is called the Badass List. And it happened on accident. I was helping my friend with something, and she had major imposter syndrome. And she was like saying, I can't launch this course. Who am I to do it? I suck, la, la, la. And I'm like, shut your mouth. I think you're amazing. And I was so in awe of this woman. Like, I was like, she was so much better than me in every way, shape, and form. And here's her, and I mean in business and in life. Thought she was just crushing it. She's just an amazing person. And here she was saying that she was terrible and imposter and not good enough. And I was like, can you just, let's write down all of the amazing badass things that you've done in your life for a second. And she starts writing down all these badass things that she's done. She's like, fine. I'm like, okay. So she like moved to New York City by herself. She made 7 figures in her business. She ran a marathon. She was on a New York City billboard. She starts writing all these things down. And I'm listening to her. I'm like, oh my God, this woman is spectacular. And then I said, you know what? Why don't you read that list out loud? But I want you to read it like you're reading it about somebody else. Because here's the thing that I found. We spend a lot of time looking on the internet at other people and thinking how badass and amazing and worthy they are. And we forget about the things that we've done that make us worthy and badass and amazing. And we forget that people are probably looking at us like that. So sometimes if we distance ourselves from ourselves and we look at the things that we've done, the accomplishments we've made, the person that we are, as if we're looking at someone else, we can see ourselves in a different light.
Yes.
And so my friend, her name's Tori, started reading this list as if it was somebody else. And I was like, is this woman worthy of doing this thing that you're scared to do right now with launching this course or this program or whatever it is you're doing? And she's like, yeah, she is. And I'm like, this one's a fucking badass.
Yeah.
So now I was like, wow, that's really good. I was like, I'm going to make a badass list. And I made it. And now whenever I feel afraid to do something, or before I go on a big stage that I've never spoken on before, or start a new business venture, and I'm feeling like, oh my God, I can't do this right now. I'm not good enough. They're going to figure out that like, oh, like I'm not who they think I am, or whatever. All these thoughts that come in our mind, I read my badass list out loud. And I remind myself, oh, if I can do all these things, I could do this.
Yeah. I love the concept of the badass list. David Goggins calls it the cookie jar. That's what he uses for himself. So he's using the same thing that you're using too.
Oh, amazing. I didn't
just
even
to
know
remind him of all the different races that he's done. If shit ever gets hard, he like reminds himself of that cookie jar of this amazing body of work in his resume over the last 20 plus years.
So cool.
And I also love the concept of, especially when you're new, you have to just try to find a way to not compare yourself to someone that's been in the game for 10 plus years. That would be like us being in the podcast game for 2 years and being like, why does Ed Milet get a million downloads every single episode? I'm like, do you know how much work that man has gotten to put himself in the situation that he's in? Like, we're like tadpoles. We've been doing this for 2 years, but like, if you stick with it, maybe you could get those same numbers too. Like, I don't know. It's something I've been trying to remind myself, because we're in year 2 of entrepreneurship, which I think year 2 is difficult because the initial dopamine hit wears off a little bit. You're trying to make money, you're adding employees, you're investing a lot of your own money back into the business. And I think it's easy to get discouraged, but just reminding yourself that like everyone that's ever done something compelling, there's always that difficulty, and then they overcome that difficulty. And that's where all the long-term success comes from. So I'm kind of saying that as a reminder to myself, but you remind me of it with some of the stuff you were talking about.
Yeah. You got to do hard shit.
You got to do hard shit.
If it was easy, everybody would be a billionaire with an 8-pack.
Yeah.
There's not very many of those.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
If the 8-pack's real. You made me think about it feels like the same part of the brain that you were describing. Also, it's like people really struggle to, it's easy for them to coach other people, but it's very hard for them to coach themselves and give themselves the advice that they need to hear. It's so odd to me. Like I feel like I remember a time in my life where a buddy was like, what advice would you give to your younger brother? And I was like, wow, all right, that made the decision so clear. It's that same part of the brain where there's like these just smoke and mirrors, and you like don't really identify with yourself in this way that other people see you, which is, it's so strange, but it's definitely empowering to know like, hey, just sit back and like count the wins, think about the things that you've done, remind yourself that you are good enough. I think that stuff really is a healthy reminder when you're doing it in that way, and not just kind of like going out and like saying those things to like brag about yourself.
No, it's not even. Yeah, it's not even about you. That's why, because we always will. If I were to ask you about, you have a little brother?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, tell me about your little brother. You would sit here and probably rail off how amazing he is.
Yeah.
You would brag about him. You would sell him to me. You would say how wonderful and amazing. And you would say it with chutzpah and love and like excitement and enthusiasm. And then in the same breath, if I said, now tell me about yourself and all the things you've done, I guarantee you that it would be a different tone.
Totally.
Right?
Would pull it way back.
Yeah,
right?
of course, because we want to be humble and we want to be right. And that's important socially, of course. But when you're talking to yourself and you're jazzing yourself up to go do something, you're not having a conversation with other people. Yes, you want to be like humble and you don't want to be like crazy bragging about yourself, because that's just whatever. It's not the best look in the world. But don't worry, you would never sound like a bragger even if you were talking about yourself in that way, because you're just not a bragging person. So don't worry. But anyways, when you're talking to yourself and you're having that moment with yourself and you're having that doubt that you can do something, what if you did just talk about yourself to yourself the way that you would talk about your little brother or somebody that you loved very much? It's so helpful. Also, another tip, another thing that I do sometimes when I'm really stuck is you said we're really good at coaching other people, but we're often not so good at coaching ourselves. I know that too. I'm really good at coaching other people and telling other people what like will light them up and lift them up and motivate them. But sometimes I can't do that for me. So sometimes if I'm having an issue, I will envision that I am my most highest self. I am Jen 2.0, 10 years from now, who's crushing it and living her best life. What would she say to me now? And I'll embody her and I'll have her write me now a letter. Dear Jenny, this is what you need to remember. And all of a sudden, the wisdom from within me will come out and it'll coach me the way that I would coach a friend.
Right.
Right? And I'll read that letter sometimes like every day that week if I need it, doing whatever it is that is hard to do.
Yeah. And also, if you're able to channel that wisdom to write the letter to yourself, why can't you show up the 10 years version of Jen in the future? Why can't you show up as her right now?
That's
too?
right.
Like deep down, we know what those characteristics are. Like, why not just choose to embody that in that exact moment?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the concept of just that internal dialogue, because I feel like we have these two voices. There's the one voice where it's almost like this subconscious monologue kind of repeating all this small stuff to you, but you can almost catch that voice when it's in the moment and then kind of almost replace that with this like dominating, empowering version, as if Harry's talking to his little brother, to himself. And I think that's such a cool thing, because we all have the ability to be able to do that, and your mind is so malleable. It's just like a muscle in your body too. So I just hear that stuff and I'm like, how could you not just get excited and motivated about life? Because we're in control of so much of this stuff.
It's a choice.
It is a choice.
So Gabby Bernstein, who's a friend of mine, she wrote the foreword to my book. She has this thing called the choose again method. And I love it because it's a reminder to me that I can't necessarily choose my first thought. So I love that the mind is malleable, it's plastic, and we can shift over time to be a more optimistic person and to make the first thought more optimistic than it used to be. So I know that for sure because I used to be a very negative person. And now I would say I'm like 85% my first thought is always like positive. Yeah. But there are still days that I wake up where I feel shitty or I have a negative thought or something happens. Like life gets lifey and shit happens. And we have emotions and we have feelings, and sometimes we just don't feel happy. Yeah. And that's okay. And sometimes our first thought is a limiting belief, and that's okay. Sometimes our first thought is, oh my God, that sucks, and that's okay. We can't necessarily choose that thought because our brain thinks thoughts uncontrollably, just like our heart beats uncontrollably and our lungs breathe uncontrollably. So if you got a thought, okay.
Yeah.
It's like acknowledge the thought. So Gabby's method is acknowledge the thought. Hi, thought. Okay. That was a shitty thought. All right. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. I love you, thought. I love you, brain. You're going to think those thoughts. That's fine. I can't choose that one, but I can choose the second one. What's a thought that I can choose as the second thought to replace that thought? Or maybe if I can't replace the thought with a thought, for me, can I take action in a way that can shift my second thought? So a lot of the times I can't think myself into positivity, but I can move myself into positivity. And I know you guys work out and stuff like that, so you guys believe in this. This is like the Meat Mafia podcast.
Yes.
So like if I can't change my thoughts, I can change my physicality. And that often moving a muscle will move a thought.
Is there a type of movement or workout that you like to do that's kind of your go-to?
Okay, so for working out, I lift. I'm a Gabrielle Lyon patient.
Yeah.
I lift heavy weights, and that's what I love more than anything because I feel so strong when I lift. But my ultimate favorite thing to do is walk. I could walk for hours and hours and hours. When I lived in New York City, I would just walk all over the place. I get clarity, and my stress just goes down. And I feel like there's no problem that I can't solve while going on a walk.
Yes.
So true.
Who said that? Someone said that all negative thoughts come from being indoors, and I feel like that's such a true quote. And then you just get outside for 15 minutes, and you're like, oh, I have a solution to all my problems.
I find that too.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's that simple, and it's like it's something we can all do is walk. But I love what you said about moving yourself into the right mindset. And I think the morning workout is a perfect example where it's like you definitely have those days where you wake up at 5 a.m. and you've got that vim and you're so pumped to go to the gym and crush your calls. And then a lot of times I'll have those days where I'm just, I'm like, oh, do I just snooze? Do I not go to the gym? Oh, I have 2 podcasts, 9 calls. But then I'm like, I know that if I just go to the gym and do some cardio and get that first bead of sweat, then everything will take care of itself. So let me just get to the gym and I'll feel as motivated as I want to be. So to your point, it's like actually creating that action that's going to get you into the mindset that you want to be into, and recognizing like, no, I'm not motivated. I'm just tired right now. So like, let me go through my routine, get to the gym, and then everything else will take care of itself.
That's the difference between successful people and people that aren't. Is that the successful person can push themselves past that, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's easy when it's easy.
Yes.
Right? Fine. Everyone can do it when it's easy. Go to the gym because you want to. Everyone that's listening to this right now, the next time your mind says, oh, you don't have to go to the gym. You could skip it today. Give yourself grace. Take care of yourself. You don't have to. When you go to bed at night, are you going to be proud of yourself? Because no matter what, you're going to go to bed. No matter what, you're gonna get in your bed, no matter if you go to the gym or not. Are you going to feel proud of yourself because you didn't go to the gym or because you did? Because the entire day, just like what you said, is actually dictated on which choice you make.
Yes.
And that entire day, your entire year is dictated on those individual days that you have. And you get that day one time. You get that chance one time to change the way that your brain works. Because you get to put those deposits in your subconscious. You put those deposits into your identity. You put those deposits, you either take them or you put them in. And the more that we can wake up and do the hard thing and do the thing, like the uncomfortable thing, do the thing that's hurts, that's painful, and move through that discomfort, we prove to ourselves who we are.
Yes.
And the more that we sit back and allow the world to do us and be the victim and don't do the thing and don't show up, we're also proving to ourselves who we are.
It's so true. Snoozing your alarm is also a non-negotiable for you too, right?
No, I don't snooze my alarm.
You don't snooze.
No. I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't dare.
Because now you got to write down in the journal at the end of the night.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine snoozing my alarm. But honestly, like that for me now, and that's just actually proof of concept that has become, that's not even something that I think about. Like you said that, I'm like, that's not even a tip I would give because that's just normal for me.
Yeah.
I don't snooze. Like what? Like I don't even know what that is. But for some people, that might be hard. And for me in the beginning, that was hard. But the more that you do it over time, the better you get. We get good at what we practice. And then it becomes a habit. And then it's just non-negotiable.
Earlier, you were talking about being a beginner and having that beginner's mindset. Is there anything that you're working on right now just to like be more of a beginner again?
Yeah, there's so many things. There's this new business that my husband and I are getting into that I've got no clue. I was like, I have to watch 85 YouTube videos today to learn about this because I don't understand it. And I'm a complete beginner. And I was having a lot of limiting beliefs around that actually. I was really battling like my ability to learn stuff. I was like, because this is totally new. I'm not going to talk about it yet because I couldn't even explain it to you if you paid me, but I'm going to change my mindset about this. I'm going to be able to explain it to you. And it's going to be a really interesting concept, but it's completely new and outside my comfort zone. And I find that, and I'm just in it right now, which is why I can really speak to this. When we start to do something totally new outside of our comfort zone, there's a shit ton of resistance. And resistance, like fear talking crap to you. Start tomorrow. Tomorrow it'll be better to start. You can watch that YouTube video tomorrow. You're not very good at learning, so you should just put that off right now and just maybe like wait and you'll figure it out at some point in time. Or maybe you shouldn't do this because it's just like not something that you're very used to. Like fear starts to negotiate with you and you resist and you resist and you resist. And Stephen Pressfield talks about resistance all the time in his books. And like the enemy is resistance. The enemy is not like your bank account. It's not the time that you don't have. It's not your limited resources. The enemy is your own mind resisting the hard thing. So I am now sitting here talking to you in this moment. This is so meta, real time. Like I'm embracing being a beginner in a totally new business that we're going to be starting and getting into. And then also I feel like every day is a mini moment for me. It's an event. Like I treat my days like I'm an athlete. Like, okay, I'm a beginner in this day. I'm just going to do my very best because there's going to be opportunities and things that come my way this day that I'm definitely not used to handling. And the more that I can like have my head in the game and get in the game and do those little wins throughout the day, like I'm a beginner in all of this. My joy is this game. It's not the achievement. And I've learned that recently because I've gotten a lot of really cool things that I always wanted. And then 5 minutes after I got the thing that I wanted, I was like, okay, what's the next thing? And I realized within that the whole like progression is what we're after.
Yes.
Like the growth is what we're after. The game is what we're after. That's what keeps us happy and joyful and fulfilled, or at least for me. And so I'm always wanting to be a beginner in something so I can always have that anticipation or that progression or that growth that I'm working towards because that's what keeps me fulfilled and happy.
So good.
Yeah. I feel like I've been thinking about this concept of like mental alchemy a lot, how the alchemist turns lead into gold. You could do the same thing from like negative thoughts to positive thoughts. And I feel like that's one of your superpowers where I think there's a type of person that would be like, I've got this new business. I have no idea what the hell's going on. I've got to watch 85 YouTube videos a day, where you choose to be like, how cool is it going to be to come on this podcast for part 2 and just be able to explain it like a master? And I feel like if everyone embraced that mindset, you would actually just enjoy attacking obstacles and like just have fun with that process, because it's such a cool feeling to be like, look, I know that if I invest the time, I don't know this now, but I will learn this, and I'm going to be so proud of myself for actually being able to learn this.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's joy.
That's joy.
That's joy.
Yeah.
Joy is not getting the thing. It's the like, oh, I learned it. I worked at it. If you didn't have that process of having to go past the hard thing and learn it and force yourself to watch the thing, oh, but I understand it now. Oh, boom, coin in the confidence bank. That's what's exciting.
Yeah. It's like doing the Instagram live and being like, oh, I'm doing this at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. There's only 5 people listening. Where it's like, I think the right mindset for a new creator is, how cool is it that there are 5 people that are all over the world that you've never connected with before that are choosing to tune in for an hour to listen to you speak about a host of different topics? Like, how cool is that? And imagine where I'm going to be in 6 months or a year from now if I keep going. Because sometimes we beat ourselves up where we're like, oh, the podcast has dipped a little bit since the summer. And we're like, oh, this episode only did like 2,000 downloads. And sometimes Harry and I will just be like, do you know how many people 2,000 people actually is that you've never met before that are choosing to tune into that? Like, you guys are going to be good. Just like keep trusting the process and see what it grows into in the future.
I love that. I love that so much. I always talk about, you have a stage in your pocket now, and people ask me like, I want to speak on stages in front of. I had this woman. This blew my mind and it really like enlightened this concept for me. We were on a call and I was meeting her for the first time, and we were connected through a mutual friend. And she was like, I want to start speaking, but I don't want to speak on small stages. I only want to speak on like really big stages. I was like, have you ever, spoken before? She's like, no, but I should be speaking on really big stages, like thousands of people. And I was like, why? Why do you want to speak in front of thousands of people? Like, what's the difference? It just really confused me. And she's like, oh, because, I've worked so hard, I should speak in front of thousands of people. I was like, all right, well, do you go live on social media ever? And she was like, no, why would I do that? I'm like, well, how many followers do you have? And she's like, oh, I have several thousand followers. Well, just so you know, if you spoke on social media in front of those thousands of followers, or you posted something, or you went live and let's say 100 of those people showed up, and maybe you kept doing it for months and months and months, and then maybe 1,000 of those people show up, then you are ultimately speaking in front of 1,000 people. And you can do that at any point in time. You don't have to wait for somebody to choose you to go be on your stage. And so every morning when I go live now, I always say that to my people. I'm like, could you imagine if we were all in a room together right now? There's 200 people on here. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like how many downloads do you guys get per episode?
Like around 2,000 probably.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So 2,000 people, envision, we're all there in a room. 2,000 people are there in that room. I think there was 250 people in Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' event.
Yes.
So envision 2,000 listening to you.
It would be
It's
by
such
far
a
the
good
biggest
reminder.
platform we've ever spoken in
That's
front of.
amazing,
And
but
every
that's
episode.
real.
Yeah.
And because it's like this online imaginary thing, we don't think that they're individuals, but they are individuals. And so we all have that. Everyone that's listening right now, if you want a platform, if you want an audience, you don't have to wait for somebody to choose you, to put you on their platform. You don't even have to have a fancy studio like this. You have it in your pocket. Pull it out and start creating content. Yes, you might only have a few people that pay attention the first couple of times, and that's great. That's the beauty of it, because you're probably not going to be very good the first couple of times you do it.
Yeah.
Thank God no one was paying attention to me in the beginning, because it was not very good. But you'll get better and better and better the more that you do it. And that's again practice. Thank God for all of those practice rounds. I mean, your first podcast that you ever did, could you think back to it? Was it bad?
It wasn't our best. It wasn't our best.
Now, compared to how you are now, I'm sure then you were like, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But now you guys have gotten so much better that you can look back and be like, wow.
I remember the first time we did a live podcast with Kyle Kingsbury.
In person.
Yeah, the first in-person podcast. This guy fought in the UFC, 6'6", massive dude, super intimidating looking. And I just remember, because it's different on Zoom versus like pressing the record button, as you know so much better than us. But the first time we did it, I remember just being so nervous and not understanding how to open up a conversation, versus now I really do feel like we could speak to anyone, and I feel like I wouldn't really have that same feeling no matter how big the guest was, because we just have so much fun and we've put in so many reps, and we want to put in so many more reps that, you know, you just get this acquired like competency over time. That's a beautiful thing.
It's like working out.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing.
Yes.
The more you work out, the stronger you get, the better. Like, you guys are really good at this. I just want to let you know. You're really good. I do a lot of podcasts. You guys are really, really good at this.
Do you ever get amazed at like the serendipity of who's actually following you on social media that you don't know about, where like maybe someone's tuned into your content for 2 years, you have no idea, and then they invite you to speak on this. They run this huge conference and they invite you to speak, and you had no idea? Because we've had a few examples of that, of like people that invest in our protein powder company, people that invited us to speak. We had no idea that they were following us, and then randomly out of the blue, they just shoot you a cold DM and there's this amazing opportunity. And you're like, I had no idea that this person had been following me for 2 years. So I'm sure that that's probably an amazing feeling for you as well.
It's great. It's amazing. I'll tell you the most amazing feeling ever, the greatest moment for me so far. I opened my phone, I think this was last year, and it said, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is following you.
Wow.
That's
and
so
I was
awesome.
like, what? This is not real. It's like a spam account, you know, like I'm like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. And I like took a screenshot and I sent it to Chris, my husband, and I was like, The Rock is following me. Like, I was laughing. Like, he's not really following me. He follows like 80 people or something, and he's got like 3.1 million followers, something crazy, maybe more than that. And I, just for fun, I was like, is this really him? Like, is this a bot? Is this like a weird coincidence? I sent him a message and I was like, thanks for following me, Dwayne. Heart emoji. Like, he's not going to read it. He's not going to answer me. He sent me a voice note. That said, hey, Jen. Like, I love your content. Keep up the good work. Keep crushing it. If you would have told, I was like, this is insane. You never know who's paying attention. That's going back to the power of social media. You never know who's listening. And forget celebrities, forget The Rock. That was a really cool fangirl moment of mine. Amazing, great. But think about the person that you have no idea that you're helping right now. That's the person I'm really creating content for.
Yes.
We had this Be on TV boot camp that we were doing during the pandemic. So we used to do events, and then 2020 happened and we could no longer do events. So we had to pivot our entire company. And we took those events that we were doing, connecting entrepreneurs to the media, and we decided to make online challenges. And that's what we were doing for the majority of the pandemic. It turned into an entire massive portion of our business that we still do today. And one of the very first Be on TV boot camps, there was this woman named Brenda. She's actually chapter 4 of my book. She's Brenda the Badass. The story of Brenda is she was a suicidal woman, and she was on the phone with the suicide hotline. She was going to kill herself. She had sexual abuse in her life. This was the time of when George Floyd was killed, and she was an African-American woman, and it was just like she was in a very, very, very bad place. And the person on the other line of the suicide hotline said to her, put that bottle of pills down right now and go do something else. And she said, okay. And she put the bottle of pills down, and she went and she opened her email. And she got an email from one of our affiliates about our Be on TV boot camp. Okay? So our little online challenge. She didn't want to be on TV. She could care less about being on TV. But she's like, here's something I can do. So she comes on to this Be on TV boot camp with me and my husband, and we're like all positive. And she tells us to this day, she tells this story all the time. She's like, I was like, I don't even like this crazy lady because I'm very animated, and I'm like, all right, everybody, let's go. And she's like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? But she kept showing up. And on the first day of the boot camp, one of the homework assignments I did for the attendees was to do their badass list and to create a video sharing one of their badass moments. So Brenda does the homework assignment, and she creates a video of one of her badass moments that was very, very inspiring. Brenda had no idea that this one woman that followed her was watching, and this one woman that followed Brenda that was watching, her child had committed suicide, and she hadn't gotten out of bed to feed her kids in months because she was so depressed. And Brenda's video, what Brenda shared about Brenda's story, inspired this woman. And this woman DM'd Brenda and was like, your story inspired me so much. I got out of bed today and I fed my kids and I feel so much better. Thank you for being seen. Thank you for sharing your story. And that message changed Brenda forever. Brenda's like, screw this. I'm going to start creating content. I'm going to start helping people, because being able to help that woman helped make Brenda feel amazing. Because when you help other people, you feel great. And it was not about her anymore. And so Brenda won the Be on TV bootcamp. She won the challenge. We have a winner at the end. She won the whole thing. She then went on to create a coaching business. She's an author. She has a TV show. She has a podcast. She's making a ton of money. She just completely paid off the loans for her kid for college. She's crushing it in life. And she's Brenda the Solutionist. That's what she calls herself. And she creates all this online content. And she's a superstar. And I know that that's a long story, but I like to tell that story because it's a reminder that it's not about you. We talk about the acronym HOPE, help one person every day. So if you're not being seen, you're not sharing your story that could possibly help people, you don't even know who you're not helping. Brenda had no idea. Well, a lot of people were helping in that moment. I'll say, like, we didn't know that we were going to help Brenda by doing that boot camp. And Brenda had absolutely no idea that creating that little video that she didn't want to create was going to help change someone else's life. And then in tandem, because she helped that one person, it helped her. And now she's helping thousands of people. It's just that's the importance of being seen.
Yeah, the domino effect or the butterfly effect, I don't know what you want to call that, but within that story, that's incredible. Just how one action, like imagine if she didn't take that step of just like, I mean, opening the email is one thing, but then actually going and signing up and doing it and continuing to show up, like that is powerful in the sense that like you can make serious change happen with just one simple action.
Oh, sorry, was it?
No, go for it.
How long ago did she sign up for that boot camp?
That was in 2020.
And look at where she is now in 2024. Like, it doesn't take that long to change your life.
Brenda, I hope you're listening to this. I'm going to send it to you. She's crushing it. Like, you should go follow. It's amazing. And she came to our event. She flies now all over the place. And she came to our last event, and she was there. It's so funny. She was in the lobby all day interviewing everyone that was at the event for her TV show. Like this woman that never wanted to be seen, that thought she was just doing this just to do something.
It's biblical in a lot of ways too, where like she had these gifts and like she didn't even necessarily know that she had these gifts, and then she starts sharing them, and now she is making a huge impact.
Yeah.
It's also another unintentional way to overcome that imposter syndrome, where it's like if you have a valuable perspective, telling yourself that you actually have an obligation to share this with the world. Like you were saying on Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's podcast, if you're an amazing doctor but no one knows who you are, think about all the patients that aren't getting the help that they need because they don't know that you exist. And it's kind of it's the same thing with Brenda too, and anyone else that has imposter syndrome.
Yeah, totally. It's not about you.
It's not about you.
Yeah, and it's about the person on the other side, that one person. So you've got 2,000 people listening to this. There might be one person out there that was like, I really needed to hear that. And maybe they go out into the world and they show up a little bit differently. And because they showed up a little bit differently, maybe they affect somebody in their family or their life, and they show up differently. It's like this gigantic ripple effect that we can create. And we don't realize, we think about numbers like, oh, I need to have 1 million followers. Like, what if you just had 2 and one of those people you really, really helped?
Yeah.
Totally. All right, we're sitting here 2 years from now, re-recording this podcast. What have you accomplished? What are the big things that you've gotten to do in this 2-year time period?
2 years?
Yes.
You guys ask everybody 2 years? That's an interesting number.
This is the first time you've asked this.
Yeah,
I like this
2 years
question.
just came to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's like it's like the statute of limitations for having a podcast guest back on.
Yeah.
It's 2 years.
Okay. Well, I'll be back.
Yeah. We need you back.
I hope I surpass my 2-year goal. Okay, well, I'm doing something that I had absolutely no idea that I wanted to do at this moment in time. So there you go, because we're always evolving and doing shit that we had no idea of. I have my second book. We are either talking about it, I'm writing it, or we're promoting it. Something along those lines. Do you have a name for it? No. I mean, I will in 2 years. We're getting there. And yeah, I hesitate saying I'm like known as the best speaker because I don't even know what the best means. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how to measure that. But I just want to be here with you guys celebrating that we are exactly where we want to be in that moment. I don't know. It's a really hard question to ask because I'm always evolving and shifting and changing and growing. And if I tell you one thing, then it might completely change. So I just want to be at a place where I'm like, we fucking did it.
Yeah. Love that. Celebrating the wins.
So I had an idea. You reminded me of it. Harry had mentioned with your journaling concept scoreboard, you should just brand that like the daily scoreboard or something like that.
I didn't even know I called it a scoreboard.
I think Harry referred to it as a scoreboard.
I like that, Harry.
But I think like the daily scoreboard could play.
It could play.
So just
I like
throwing
that.
that
Thank
out
you.
there.
I like that idea. I'm going to write that down the second that I leave here.
You could write a whole book on that potentially.
Maybe I could. Maybe we just wrote my second book. Maybe we just
go.
thought of the idea. See, there you go.
Scoreboard.
You always have to talk about things because you never know when you're going to get the next idea or when someone's going to say something. That's why you got to share what's going on.
Yeah.
Totally.
Definitely. But we're so appreciative of you coming on the show. Like we said, heading into the weekend, we had no idea that this was going to happen. It's incredible serendipity. And we've learned a lot from your content. And we're appreciative of getting to be friends with you, having you in the studio, and just very excited for everything that's to come. So thank you so much, Jen.
This was such a wonderful surprise. Highlight of my weekend. Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Have you back soon.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Hopefully before 2 years.
Yeah, we can do 1 year.
Can we do before 2 years?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Hopefully I'll see you before that.
All right. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.